Welcome to Norwich University of the Arts. I am recording this session. This is mostly recording me so that we can use this for other purposes. Before we kind of get into the main content, we are the only specialist art and design university that is triple TEF gold rated. That is the Teaching Excellence Framework, which we're incredibly proud of. We are also the Daily Mail University of the Year, the Arts University of the Year. My name is James. I'm the course leader for photography. I've got around half an hour to tell you probably quite a bit about the course. I probably will talk very quickly for half an hour non-stop, so apologies for that before we start. What I will say is that if you can get around as many places as possible and see what their version of photography is, because at this level we all have our own versions of photography. My job today is to tell you about why you might want to consider coming here and the kind of things that we're interested in as a course in terms of our graduates and what they do afterwards. The course here is very much led by an individual creative approach. We're very much interested in who you are, the things that you're passionate about, the things you want to do with your photography. It is visual rather than technological. It is about making images. The technological is important because obviously we use cameras, which are technical things. We use computers as part of our practice. But the image at the end is what's important. All the technical stuff in the world isn't going to take you as far as you want without that kind of individual creative bit as well. It is professional, then it is applied. And what we mean by that is that whilst you're making this body of personal work, this work that is very much individual and about you, we have to consider what you do with it. So it's about where you might get commissioned, where you might put your work, how you start to monetize your practice, how you make a living within your photography or within a creative practice, and it is aspirational. So our graduates don't go in and necessarily work at the bottom end of industry, they go out and start leading industry. They're the ones out there kind of pushing boundaries and starting to do new things. And preparation for industry runs through everything that we do. So whilst we're dealing with you, your individual practice, we're also looking at how industry works and the things that you'll need to know to be successful. The course structure is probably very similar to other courses in that we have lectures, we have workshops, group crits, individual tutorials and guest speakers. Guest speakers I'm going to talk about a little bit more as we go through. Every year group tends to have a lecture a week that sets the scene for the week coming up, whether that's on a Monday or a Wednesday or a Friday. We're kind of working a week through, so lectures will introduce topics and things you'll be thinking about, and then the workshops will back that up, whether they're technical workshops in the studio, maybe in the digital darkroom doing something with Photoshop, or whether it's more about creative practice and how you develop ideas. Group critiques is when you work with your peers, you look at each other's work, you help kind of feed back in a critical way about how you and how they might develop your practice. Individual tutorials are with the course team, with the tutors, and again to help you develop what you do. And then guest speakers, like I said, I'll come on to in a little bit. We have 3 curriculum areas, and the curriculum areas are the same for pretty much every course within the university. So we're looking at creative practice. And for us, that's the photography, whether that's still image, moving image, whether you start thinking about how you might use computer-generated imagery within your practice, that's the creative practice bit. We've then got research practice and critical thinking, which underpins everything that we do. In order to make the very best images, in order to develop what you do, we have to understand everything else that's going on. And we're looking at historical and very much kind of contemporary practice. What's happening in the world right now, what's happening in creative industries, how you use that to inform what you're doing. And then careers and personal development, which does start right from the very start of the course and develops as you go through. And there's a little bit more about those things here. So this is the first unit in first year. There are 2 units in each year. So in year 1, you have a 10-week and then a 20-week unit. In year 2, that switches around, so you have 20 weeks and then 10 weeks. In year 3, switches back to 10 weeks and 20 weeks. So this is the first 10-week unit for year 1. It's called Creative Learning. I won't read all this out because we'll be here forever. But this is how those kind of 3 different areas of practice start to feed in some of the things that you'll be looking at within that first unit. And within that first unit at the moment, we're looking at narrative single image. So how you start to tell stories with the pictures, how you start to communicate the things that you're interested in as an individual and as a creative practitioner. And then as we go into year 2, that continues and we kind of build on those things. So we're looking at global contexts. Again, we're looking at those 3 different areas of practice and how they kind of build. And we're looking at landscape, portrait, and still life. So we're still looking at the things that you're interested in as an individual, but we're really starting to think about how you apply your creative, your visual approach across 3 different subject areas. Because when you go out and you start working in photography, the likelihood is you're going to be working with clients who aren't necessarily interested in your subject matter, but they're interested in visually how you approach things. And they'll ask you to apply what you do to their thing. So this is the start of that, starting to think about how you take you and apply it to what other people might ask you to do. And there's an example from one of our current 30s who did this last year, and kind of applying that visual approach across those 3 different areas. In year 3, we move very much on to, again, who you are as an individual, the things that you really want to do, and you dictate your projects throughout the 3rd year. You'll tell us what you want to do and how you're going to approach it, the things that you want to get from that. And by the end of the year, we'll develop this portfolio that you go out to industry with, that you show people, that you start to generate income with. And we're very much considering the skills that you built up to that point, the things that you need to develop further, and how you then start to use that very much going out into industry. And we encourage our 30s very strongly to get out right from the start of 30 and start assisting and start to develop those relationships with people within industry. And by the end of the course, what we have is these very individual portfolios of work, so people are doing what they want to do in the way that they want to do it. Our job is to help them understand what they want to do and how to produce it to the very highest standards. So I've just got a selection over a few slides now about the different work that last year's 3rd years produced. So even when we're working with portrait, it's very different ideas and things that people are interested within that. And the cat. As well as the course-specific things, we have projects that run across the whole university. Because we are specialist arts, it means that our students can work with each other very easily. And because we share the same curriculum outline, the same learning outcomes, then our students can literally work with each other and work in the same understanding of what they're trying to achieve with that. So this is from Make It Manifesto, which happens in the 1st week of the year. We have all 3 years of students across the entire university, all working to projects for Make It Manifesto, and then we have this huge tour of the campus so everybody can see what everybody else has done. We also have interchange, which happens during the assessment weeks. So we have a lot of external people and internal people, and students can go and study in areas that are different to their subject area. So if you wanted to, you could go and do some creative mending, you can do things with acting about finding your voice, you can learn to knit or crochet, or maybe you can think about developing your visual approach or location finding for fashion photography. So there aren't photography-specific ones, but then there's things outside of your subject area that you might want to bring into the things that you do within your photographic practice. We do have 3 and 4 year pathways. So the 4 year pathway is there for those students who think that they might like an additional year to get to grips with maybe some of the technical or some of the creative things before they go into the main 3-year programme. We also have level 5 diplomas that sit between the 2nd and 3rd year. So you might want to go and do some creative professional development. So that would be a year where you go out into the work environment, you experience the things of that work environment before you come back and complete your final year. Or within creative computing, which is one of the kind of growth areas within photography and a lot of creative subjects. The traditional idea of photography is kind of on the decline, and we're thinking about an expanded version of photography to include still, moving, computer-generated design. And the computer-generated design is the kind of the big growth area within the photographic market at the moment. When we write the course, and every university has a different course, their own way of doing things. It's not just me sitting down thinking how mean I'm going to be for the upcoming years. We go out into industry and we talk to industry about what's needed from graduates, what industry are looking for in terms of employability and entrepreneurship. So the Association of Photographers are one of the bodies that we work really closely with. They are the trade body for photography in the UK, So they look after a lot of the legal concerns around photography, things that aren't necessarily hugely interesting but really important. So things like license to use images. So you'll sign a license to use to a client, not copyright. And within that license, you'll assign them the rights to use that work for maybe 2 years, maybe online use in the UK. If they want to use it for longer or for a different purpose, they pay you again. So in terms of how we generate income as photographers, it's not quite as simple as going and doing a shoot and charging someone for it and that's it. There's more complexity to it that's really important to understand. They're also doing a huge amount of work around AI and the impact that's going to have on photography, protecting photographers' rights and all those kinds of things. We work really closely with Andy Earle. He's our visiting professor. He's coming in on Tuesday next week to come and work with third years. Parents. Who remembers a band called Bow Wow Wow? Okay, a few of you. Malcolm McLaren Band. Andy had an exhibition that was pictures of very drunk, very rich racegoers at Ascot that he'd done with this very direct flash, so that they were kind of very eye-catching images. Malcolm McLaren walked in, saw the images, and went, "I really like these. Will you photograph a band for me?" And Andy went, "Yeah, okay then." And that made Andy's career. So it doesn't matter the subject that you're photographing for other people. It's really important for you, less important for other people. Visually, how you approach it is the key thing. And from that, Andy has photographed everybody who is anybody within the music industry. We also work really closely with Tim. We took a group of third years down to his studio last week. Tim is a very commercial photographer. He works within advertising, but within his personal practice, he does these book projects. So the first book was Equus, which is a book of horses. Then there was Dogs, Gods, More Than Human, and Endangered. There's some more to come. The dog book, a picture book of dogs, was the biggest selling book in America when he launched it. He's made millions of pounds out of pictures of dogs. Whatever you are passionate about, whatever your subject, you've got to cling on to that, because that's the really important bit. That's the bit where you show other people how passionate you are about it and the things that you're passionate about and why you want to do it. He's done a bird book. So birds are the most photographed animal on the planet, and he's very much thinking about how to do it in a way that isn't the kind of stuff you would see normally. Birds in their environment, so birds in the studio environment is quite different. We also work with Dean, who is another music photographer, music celebrity. He's a DJ. He trained as a tailor. He used to make bespoke trousers for men, so that kind of fashion music. All of that stuff he's really interested in. Less mainstream music than Andy Earle. Very kind of different approach to it, which is really interesting. We also work with Canon cameras. So the majority of cameras we have within the store that the students take out are Canon. We've got a stock of 5D DSLRs, and we've just bought some of the R5, the new mirrorless Canon cameras for students to use. They sponsor our competition, which I'll come back to in a little bit. And a couple of weeks ago, I was up in Sheffield with them looking at the new generation of Canon cameras that have deep learning built in. So we were photographing a basketball game, and the camera has worked out where the ball is going to go before the ball goes there. It's incredible, the kind of things that they're doing. We also work with Phase 1. So Phase 1 are probably less well known than Canon. They do make cameras, they make medium format digital stuff. We have 4 of them that stay in the studio. They're £25,000 each, which is why they don't leave the studio. Because we are a course that's very much looking at industry, looking at professional standards, looking at production. We have to think about the standard that we're producing work to. And we absolutely understand that the vast majority of students probably can't afford £25,000 for a camera. So we've done it. So those cameras to use. They also have a bit of software that goes alongside it called Capture One, which is an industry standard software that sits alongside Photoshop. So we have Capture One on all of our computers, and they're just starting to accredit students and early career professionals again now. So we're looking at how we integrate that into what we do. Alongside the phased cameras, we have some Pentax medium format cameras that do go out on location. They're not quite as high-end as the phase one, they're only £12,000 each, but they are location cameras, students take them out. So again, we're really thinking about that professional standard of producing images alongside that creative approach. And then our guest speakers. So we have a guest speaker pretty much every week when we don't have a submission. So if students are submitting work, they don't turn up to guest speakers. There's too much other things to worry about. And the week before holidays, we don't tend to have one because students on a Friday tend to go. We have Edgar Martins talking online as I'm talking to you now. So he's talking to students online at the moment. And again, we're looking at a variety of different people with different experiences. Tim and Andy at the very top of the industry and have been for quite some time. So they're very aspirational. They're doing really well in terms of their careers, in terms of how much money they can earn. They can't tell us how to start now. They don't understand what it is to start in photography right now. So we make sure that we get some of our recent graduates who have been out there for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. They can come in and say, this is what I did, this is how I started, this is how you start your career within the creative industries. Alongside the course-specific talks, we have what we call the Vice Chancellor's Talk Series. So these are talks that sit outside the course, that are designed to expand your knowledge and understanding of creative industries beyond photography, which is really important because we don't work within this little glass bubble of photography. It's all this other stuff sitting outside of that as well. This is the visit to Tim's studio. So his studio is in Shoreditch. He's really great because he'll talk very much about what he does, about how a shoot day runs, about how he retouches images, how he controls the retouch of images. And we also got to talk to April, who's his producer, and she can talk very much about her relationship, what she does, because what she does is probably the next step for our students rather than becoming Tim. Certainly not straight away, maybe kind of 10 years into your careers, you might kind of get to where he is. We also visited Big Sky Studios. They've got 13 hire studios. So there's a lot of people that work in there either as studio assistants or lighting assistants or tech assistants that will help a variety of different photographers that come in and hire those spaces. This is their rooftop, which is great. So you can hire the rooftop as a studio and shoot out over London, which is really cool. And we also went to Print Space and Metro. So once you leave university, you have to start thinking about how you're going to produce and print images, frame images. And Print Space and Metro are two of the companies that deal with that. And then for year 3, when we get to March, usually about 6 weeks before the end of the year, we have an industry critic in London. So we have around 10 to 12 industry professionals that feed back about mock portfolios before 30 go into full production and do their final portfolios. It's an incredibly busy day. So there's kind of 6 hours working with those people in these kind of big crits. It's very noisy, it's very energetic, and it finishes with a social event with all of those photographers. So we're thinking very much about networking. So you can email people, likelihood is you're not going to get a response. You can phone them, which is better, because it's far harder to say no to if you phone somebody. But actually finding out where they're going to be, kind of after exhibitions, at the pub, having a few drinks and talking to people is a far better way of networking. So we start that process as part of the course. And then we have our end of year exhibition. So this is at the Truman Brewery in London. We have a little bit of branding, just a tiny bit. These images, these first two here are A0, so they're 1 metre 12 by 85 centimetres. I think these ones here are about 140 by 110 centimetres. They're huge, they're kind of this big. And to get that quality, we have to be thinking about the cameras that we're using, the level of production we're using, how we sharpen things. Very fundamental basic things like colour space, file formats. So all the technical stuff is within it that kind of supports what you do. But hopefully what you've seen from the images I've showed is that the students are all working on very, very different practices because it's about the things that they want to do with it. Then there's the course team, the staff that we have working. This is me. Well, it's not me, this is my pictures. I was a rock climber and mountaineer, and then I moved to Norfolk. Not a lot of climbing and mountaineering in Norfolk. I have to do silly things, so I started to do triathlon. So this guy is a guy called Simon. He was racing Ironman triathlon for the Seychelles. So you go out and you swim 2.4 miles, you cycle 112, and you run a marathon in a day. I'm quite interested in ideas, funny enough, around ageing, around fitness, around well-being. I did do an Ironman nearly 10 years ago now. The professionals do it in 8 hours. I did it in 13. 5 hours difference, which is just, I don't get it. So there's all those kind of things that are wrapped up in terms of me and what I do and the kind of things I'm interested in. So that's what I do in terms of my photography. This is the other James on the course, who's very much interested in black identity and black history. Gretchen is from New Zealand, so she's got some work for New Zealand Tourist Board. She was also a car photographer. So a photographer that actually photographs real cars, which doesn't happen an awful lot anymore because a lot of it is done CG. And to light a car is really difficult because they're really shiny. There's lots of different angles and light goes everywhere. But yeah, she's fantastic. Ross is interested in British pastimes, the relationship with his father, with working classes. This is from a body of work that he did around fishing, and this is some of his commercial fashion work. And visually, there's a really kind of strong similarity between the two. Katie is interested in animals, different way to have Tim is interested in animals. So she's interested in things like zoos, and whether they're just there for us to go and gawk at these animals or whether they're to preserve wildlife and that kind of thing. And then the Greyhound project, which was using wet collodion, which is a very old historical process of printing onto tin plates. And it wasn't about that process specifically, but it was about the look that it gave, for this kind of slightly melancholy feel. Because racing greyhounds race for a bit, and then they don't race anymore. So starting to think about what happens to these dogs kind of maybe after they finished working. Andy is Norfolk, Norwich through and through. And some of the things that you might want to consider is where you're going to work after you finish university. The standard route is to London, because the majority of the photographic industries are in London, followed maybe by Leeds and Manchester and some of the other big cities. But you can make a living in Norfolk. But if you go into the city with Andy, everybody comes over to say hello. He knows everybody in Norfolk. It's unbelievable. It's a nightmare. You can't get anywhere. So you can do it, but you have to have that network. You have to have those kind of people that you can use in order to get that work. Denise is a fashion photographer, and this is from a book called Timeless, A Century of Iconic Looks. This arm of the phone isn't from the same image as the rest of it. So that's been comped in afterwards because it wasn't quite right in the original. I've got no idea how she's done that. It's flawless. Sean is interested in motorcycles and music, alternative technologies, loves kind of valve amps, VHS cassettes, all that kind of stuff. Does a whole load of work with the motorcycle and music industries outside of working for us here. Jeanette is interested in the man-altered environment, so we as humans are kind of shifting the planet, things like the Anthropocene, which is a proposed geological age that's suggesting that we've moved the planet off its normal cycle by 20,000 years, so that those kind of things around environmental issues. And then our students, we do fairly well in competitions. So this is Micaiah, who was selected for the AOP Student Awards. And again, this is about black identity and the part that hair plays within that. This is Emily with a landscape image. Very, very different images selected for the same competition. And then a selection of other images that was also selected for the AOP Awards, from studio still life to landscape to portraiture. These are 3D scans. So they're from an iPhone with the 3 lenses, and the 3 lenses will kind of sort things and put it into 3-dimensional scans. They're Jason's, and he got selected for I don't know how many competitions in the end. Every week he was coming and saying, James, I've been selected for another competition. So that stuff just got picked up by everybody because it was so different to everything else that was going on. So this is it again for the D&AD. What's really interesting here is that we've got a 3D scan, we've got a traditional photograph, and we've got a CG piece of work. So there's no camera involved in the production of that at all. So the photographic image has shifted and changed over the years, and it's up to you to work out how you want to use whatever technologies you want to use. This is Joey's work for the ISO Awards with his comedic still life images. And then some of our graduates. So Emily is working as a freelance assistant within Still Life in London. Jordan is working for a company called Ogilvy as a food photographer. Interestingly, when he was here, we kind of gave him a bit of a shove and said, go and work with Roger Hickman, who's Michelin starred. Go and work with Galton Blackiston up in North Norfolk, who's also Michelin starred. And eventually he did. So he's having these top Michelin chefs make food for him to photograph. So that when he left and went to industry and said, I photographed 4, they go, wow, that's amazing. And it's just little things like that that can help separate from everyone else. This is Jonathan, who is working for Kurt Geiger's shoes. In his final year, he decided to try and wind me up as much as possible. Why is that off centre? Really bugs me. And every single image he took just had this little imperfection just to kind of wind me up a little bit. Caitlin is working for Selfridges. Hannah is working for Bliss Hotels. And what's the name? That's Callum, who is working for Brompton Bikes. Cherie is working for Linden Stout, which is a talent agency. She's head of arts. Kane is a fashion photographer working predominantly in men's fashion, and then Maddie is working for Harris. The leaflets, the little flyers that I gave you about 25 minutes ago now, they're for our competition. It is sponsored by Canon. The QR code should work. If you want to scan that, it should take you to the website where you can enter. It's open now. The deadline is in February. And it's very much about celebrating the best of student talent. We have 2 cameras to give away. It's free to enter. There are the 2 themes which are based on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which are on there, and gender equality and responsible production and consumption. So you can probably find something within what you do that fits into one of those categories. So please do enter. We'll have an awards event in April, where the judges will be coming in and talking about who they are and what they do, about how they work within the industry. So some really important things that are within that event as well. The things that I think I would like you to take away from today is that the course here is very much about you. It's very much about you as an individual and the things that you want to do. We don't have a house style. We don't have a set way that we want you to approach things. We want you to approach it in the way that you want, and our job is to help you to do that to the very, very best of your ability and thinking about the standards of the outside world. It is professional and it is applied. So again, we're very much thinking about how you take that personal body of work and how you monetize that, how you apply that outside of that. And the vast majority of photographers that we work with have a personal practice and some kind of commercial practice. If you're someone like Tim, they're very, very close. Other photographers, it's a bit further away. But what you do for your personal practice, where you can make mistakes, you can get things wrong, you can develop what you do in a different way, really informs your commercial practice. It helps you develop beyond the stuff you already do. If you're just showing people the same thing over and over and over again, then you get used for a bit and then everyone's seen it. So the personal practice is there to help you develop what you do and who you are and your practice. It helps you get the work where you make a living, because you probably want to do both of those things. And understanding who you are and what you do in that context is such a key part of what we do here. I'm just about on time again, Tom. Amazing. I usually go over by about 10 minutes. I think I must be talking faster this year. Hopefully you're going to go on a tour now of the university. This is the East Garth, which is the main photography building. Within there we've got our main studio upstairs. It's an English heritage building. It's a beautiful building. The studio upstairs we weren't allowed to paint black. So we've got a big black tent in there, which is kind of cool. Because when we're teaching people to light, if you try and light in a white room, you've got light going over, it's far harder to see what you're doing. So the blackness in there helps you see what the lights are doing once you've taken pictures. Over the way, we've got the Westgarth, which is a white studio. So once you've learnt fundamental basics in that one, then you can go and start to use the other one, and it's more independent over there. Also within that building, we have our digital darkroom, which is a computer suite. The interesting or really boring thing about that room is there's no colour in there. Everything's grey. So the walls, the ceiling, the floors, the desks, everything is grey. And when we renovated that building about 10 years ago now, the Vice-Chancellor said, James, what colour do you want it? Grey. Really? You don't want it green or purple? No. If you've got green or purple on the wall and it's bouncing off screens, you can't colour balance stuff. So we're kind of thinking about all of those things that are really important in terms of the level of production and things that we do. So as well as that suite, 2 doors down, there's a smaller room which has really, really high-end computing. That's the final finishing bit, the colour management room and the kind of printing room within that building. I think if I go to the next one, it won't let me on a PDF. Does anybody have any questions before we pass it across to our ambassadors to talk? Has everybody had enough of me talking at them for half an hour? I don't do that in lectures normally, honest.
Great. Well, thank you so much, James. If we could give you a round of applause.